let's see. Let's just look around and let's just see if any of it's streaming live. Because it's hit and miss with this thing. Unbelievable, man. Unbelievable. Yeah, it doesn't look like any of it's streaming. It's just, this is too much, man. It should not be this difficult. It should not be this hard. Why do I have to use two computer systems, pay a boatload of money for systems and software, and nothing works? Nothing. And when it does work, they block me and censor me. It's too much, man. It's way too much. So I guess I'll record this and then put it up live. Put it up, record it. Most of you watch the recorded version anyway, so it doesn't really matter. But what I'm saying is, it really should not be this difficult, man. To talk to people. It shouldn't be this difficult. Now I want to talk about freedom for a second. Freedom is definitely something that it's just something that needs to be addressed, because people think freedom has something to do with being able to choose between one type of butter or cheese and another. I'm so aggravated. I'm so aggravated with the inability to do this. Like, I have extensive knowledge of computers and software. I've been a producer on live broadcasts, podcasts, streaming to several platforms. I've done it successfully many times. And this is just nothing but hogwash. And I just don't know. All right, so let me start this off with the Who, because the Who, what, when, where, and why. That's what we talk about every week. The Who. I am that, comma, I am. It's not I am that I am. It's not an all powerful deity that's like striking people down. That's not what this is. It's I am that, comma, I am. See, they didn't have commas back then. People just understood. I am that, comma, I am. What does that mean? Well, it means that I'm you and you're me, and everything you see is part of you and part of me. That's what that means. That's what that statement was supposed to mean then, and it's definitely what it means now. The beloved messenger from the source of the all is, conquering all mountains placed in the way of truth, love, and freedom, using wordy warfare. That message from the mountaintops, principle of care everywhere. We do recover, guys. It takes all of our efforts. So let me keep it moving here. My intention is to deliver that message to all. It's just amazing. It's just amazing. Hi, Chris.
Hi, John. How you doing, brother?
I'm having a hell of a time, man. This thing doesn't work. Chris, how long have you known me in this lifetime?
Close to 10 years.
10 years. And have you ever known me not to know something about computers and software and all this other shit?
No.
Right. So why is this such a complicated task for me to do week after week?
That's a good question. Why?
Yeah. So you got to know that there's something more going on. There's something more going on.
There's always something more going on.
Thank you for your input, Chris. I appreciate it. So, anyway, Chris will be a guest on our show once we have some shows. Once we have all the bugs worked out, Chris will be a guest on our show. That's Christian Baker, musician, talented writer, talented researcher, extraordinaire, spiritual guru, etc., etc., etc. Conquering the matrix moment by moment. Christian Baker, ladies and gentlemen. Yeah, this is it's very frustrating. It's very frustrating, and I apologize to you guys. Like, this isn't how I want to start my show off every single week, but it might be the way this show gets started off every single week. So I'm going to cut to this part, and this is what I'm going to upload, to the platforms that this isn't streaming to. I've had a lot of spiritual experiences. I've had a lot of mental awareness awakenings. But I've made a declaration into the universe, and it's my testimony, and it's what works for me. I'm suggesting that you find your own path that works for you. Someone asked me which spiritual path is the one that works, and my response to that is the same as every other question that's asked in, which pathway. The pathway you follow, the path that you work, the program that you work, that's the one that works, believe it or not. To have a dark night of the soul, a spiritual awakening, that's not necessarily required. Some people actually come into this third dimensional plane and they're on point. They're ready. They're out there doing it. Boots on the ground, handling their business. So I got a friend, his name's Bob Akoff. For those that don't know, he's the principal of Perseverance. This man has helped me tremendously throughout my periods of time of financial difficulties. He employed me. At times I was going through my bouts of depression and anxiety and, my suicidal, times where I just didn't want to keep going on. That man, he actually helped me tremendously. He would put little sticky notes around my area. He would come into my place early in the morning. You put little sticky notes all around talking about you're worth it, you're worthy, you can get up, do it, etc., etc. And you got to have a team. You got to have an army. You got to find a tribe. Like when I talk about spiritual pathways and I talk about recovery programs and, finding your recovery program and moving forward with that, basically what I'm saying is find your tribe, guys. Like, there's a lot of older models in place, like these 12-step rooms and everything else. And I'm not downplaying that. If that's part of your process and that's what works for you, that's great. I encourage that. I strongly encourage that you utilize what works for you. The best part about the 12-step program, from what I've seen, is, you realize that you're connected to something bigger than you. You can't, but together you can. They talked about group consciousness in the 12-step rooms, which I thought was great. Group consciousness is what has led me to the point of understanding that when you're involved with a group of people, your tribe, when you're with your tribe and you're moving forward and you have the same intentions, you have the same mindset, usually you come together and there's a collective conscious bubble that occurs, and it goes into the universe and it expands. It's why you get different types of confirmations, or if you go to an area where people are gathered in that type of atmosphere, usually you hear something that you're very familiar with, or some kind of sign or symbol or confirmation comes out of it. So that's something you definitely want to keep your eyes open for. That's how you know you're with your tribe. Um, anyway, so Bob says the real problem is the mirror. You are the one who fell for that bullshit. So like when you're having issues and problems in your life today, you want to point the finger. You want to say, oh, it's the government. Oh, it's, this person or that person or my sponsor or my recovery specialist or my employer or my family member, my mother, father, sister, daughter, lover. You want to blame everyone else, but really you have to go to the mirror and you have to look into the mirror and you have to say to yourself, that's the problem. That's the problem. See, ego or expectations or holding on to resentments was the problem. Placing yourself into a position of authority over another, that's the problem. So you have to look at the situation as a continuation of your journey. You're not here to control others. You're not here to tell others what to do and how to do it. You are here to respect other beings. You are here to live. You are here to love. You cannot harm others. That's the main thing of what I'm trying to say there. So when there's a problem in your life and it seems like you can't figure it out, usually it's when you go up to the mirror and you look in the mirror and there's your answer. There's your solution. There's your solution. It's not only the problem. The good news is it's not just, the bad news is it's the problem. The good news is it's not just the problem, it's the solution. You can have the solution right there in front of you. I read a book, The Secrets to Success by Napoleon Hill. Great author, great concepts. He talks about the group consciousness. He interviewed hundreds of people like Carnegie Mellon and Rockefeller and Henry Ford and all these people that done all these, magnificent things throughout the history of humanity. And he spoke to each one of them. And the one thing that he said in his book that was like great was, besides the collective consciousness, which rang bells with me because I remembered the 12-step processes. But he said, there is a person that's going to help you. And he took this guy that was, all distraught and he didn't know what his answers or solutions was. He was looking for help any way he could get it. Any way he could get the help he was looking for. So he went to Napoleon Hill. Napoleon Hill took him up 3 flights of steps. He says, I got the guy, the whole way up the steps. He's saying, I got the guy's right here. He's going to help you. He's going to da. He gets to the top of the steps. He opens the door and there's a full body length mirror standing there. And he points to the mirror and he says, that's the guy right there. That's the guy that's going to get you. He's going to get you through it. He's going to help you find the path. He's going to help you find the tools. He's going to help you and encourage you every step of the way. So that's where the selflessness comes into play, where it's more of a self identity, self program. You have to get on board with understanding that no one's going to solve your problems for you. You must do it yourself. So, once I've gotten to that point where I felt as though I solved a lot of my personal problems. I did a lot of healing. I had my dark night of the soul. I've worked through my trauma, my stressors, my motivators, my accomplishments, my ego. I worked through all those things. And now I'm at the point where I'm reaching out to you because that's where I'm at. I'm reaching out to you so that you can reach in within and understand that you are part of the solution, not just for yourself, but for the world at large. There's a lot of gaslighting going on. That's a new term. I love this new term, gaslighting. Like set it on fire. Burn it up. There's a lot of gaslighting going on. Like I seen on television over the past year or so, they talk about defunding the police and all this other stuff. Look, I'm more of a rootist. I like to look at the actual problem. The problem isn't the police that's walking around. The problem isn't the military that drops the bombs on the babies. The problem isn't the medical industry, that's poisoning people. These are not the problems. The real problem is the government. So if you want to defund anything, you want to stop anyone from committing the atrocities that are occurring in our society today. If you want to do anything, defund the government. Say no to authority. Natural law is the only pathway that's going to work. So if you don't know about natural law, go look it up. A great gentleman that you can research, his name's Mark Passio. He started the One Great Work Network.com. It's ONE, One Great Network One Great Work Network.com. Great contributors and content creators, people that are actually boots on the ground, out on the street, putting together content material that makes sense when in the world we live in there is no sense. So I want to talk about a few things on a personal level. When I first witnessed anything, when I was younger, like this is how it went. Okay, so when I was younger, I guess I was around 11 or 12 or so, and I was, experiencing different things in life, and I had, this little itch of rebellion going on inside of me. Like things just didn't seem right, and I'm sure either if you're not there now, you've been there before, or you're going to be there. I witnessed this channel on cable television. It was called FSTV, Free Speech TV is what it was. FSTV. There was a woman on there, Amy Goodall, whatever. And I had no idea that this was a far left program, a far left organization. But a lot of the stuff that I was witnessing rang true with me, and it was interesting. And I felt like these are people that were, and like, it wasn't about politics, it wasn't about political views or any of that stuff. And I watched this woman, and I watched the different shows and documentaries that they were presenting, and I was like enthralled, because it was like it spoke out against the narrative, their narrative, that the mainstream media and what they all had in place, that this stuff spoke out against it. And it was like, wow, man, like these people are changing the world, like this is awesome, and that's how I felt. But there was something that was like, underlying. It was like there was an agenda there. And I could feel it even at 12, 13 years old. I could feel it. It really should have been called No News now, But when I first witnessed, let me see. Yeah. So that was like my experience with the left. It was like, man, yeah, we can do so much more as a society, as a people. We can do so much more, and like them exposing things that the government was involved in, and the military was involved in, and the different aspects of political spheres were involved in. It like really reached me, and I could feel, but I could still feel that there was a narrative in play, even at that age. When I went to prison for the first time, I guess I was around 17, 18. I came from a military / police family background. So like, it was always about right and wrong. It was always about law and order. It was always about, respecting the law, respecting authority. These things were not only required in my household, but expected and encouraged. And that was cool on some levels. On other levels, it felt like there was a conformity that was a little overbearing, and like there was force with military, there was force with police, and I always felt that. But when I went to prison for the first time when I was 18 years old, as an adult, I would lay in my rack, my bunk, with my cellies, my bunkies, whatever you want to call them, and I would listen to, on the headphones, I would listen to AM radio stations, and that's pretty right-wing, strong Republican, and that's where I was making connections with them. There was like, they were talking about different agendas, they were talking about conspiracies, and people like JFK and Martin Luther King. These people rang out to me in my lifetime, because of their impact on society and what they were doing. So, I would listen to them, and they would talk about the corruption in the government, Both of these viewpoints, the left and the right, they were always very attractive to me. They made sense to me on a lot of levels, but they were like so non-inclusive of the other side. It just didn't make any sense. Like why wouldn't you want to love your brother or sister and feed them and house them and take care of them like the left leans for, and at the same time protect what's yours like the right talks about. Like why would you have to have one and not the other? It just like this whole divide and conquer strategy, this you know everything they have in place is just designed to separate us. And the more you see that, the more you realize that that's that's what's destroying us, the separation, guys. um, they had value, they had voice. The fact that you had to choose sides, though. It was like you were either red or you're blue, or black or white or whatever. I mean, it was always a side. And it reminded me, and like, because I was in my teens and my late teens, like at that time in the 90s, there was a lot of gang stuff going on. Like LA was on the spotlight with television, and you had the Reds, and you had the Crips, and you had the Bloods. You had the red and the blue. Like there was always red and blue, red and blue, red and blue. So you got to understand that there's a level of symbology and mind control that goes on with this, that most people just they can't see. So when you're talking about programming, like, and this is the core of what I was saying. When you're talking about programming, some of the things you might want to look into is like, I talked about the dissent and the rebellion, and like people that effectuated change over the course of modern times, with the civil rights movement and the hippie movement and the love movement, and then the move on, and the anti-war, all the stuff that's going on over the past 60, 70 years or so, has been controlled, orchestrated, and designed by them. So like when I say that, you have to do some homework. You have to actually go and look some things up. You're not going to want to use the search engines of Google or any of that stuff. You want to go to like Dogpile or DuckDuckGo, or any of the other servers that exist that are non-compliant with censorship. The one thing you want to look into is there's a really good book. There's a lot of talk and documentaries surrounding it called The Secrets of Laurel Canyon. You start looking into that, you start to see the connections with the Hollywood and the rock and roll music, and it's come all the way through now. It's everything that's popular today is designed by them. Like there's nothing that you'll see on mainstream television or hear on mainstream radio or play on a mainstream game system that isn't propagated by them. They've been doing this. So like I have my Uncle Joe to thank for that. He was very instrumental in the beginning of like the hippie and the love concepts, but in a way so that it was individualized. He exposed me to a lot of different cultures and beliefs, and respect for self, respect for community. Him and my aunt, they lived in a very tough neighborhood in the city of Philadelphia, and it was a no-nonsense situation. People died all the time around them, and it's worse now than it's ever been down there. But I talk about that because he was one of the people that nurtured and and put me on this pathway. So I talked about the computers and stuff, like when I was a young laddie. I had I had the Commodore 64, and then I had the Commodore 128. My mother purchased these things for me. She worked bent over backwards to make things happen. Because we didn't have a lot, but she made sure that I never knew that, and that was awesome about her. But at school early on, it was, it was Apple and Mac and Tosh, and then typewriters, the quick brown fox jumped over all the lazy dogs, like you had to place your hands on the keys and do that, so there was things that went on where like I had early access and early education with computer systems, and my Uncle Joe was great because I could always go to him when I had problems and he would give me the solutions. Now I with the stuff that's going on today, we should be much further along with technology. It shouldn't be this difficult to go and stream live. I should be able to push a few buttons, use one computer system. I should be able to use the dummy phone, the slab as Mark calls it, or like the smartphone that does nothing to improve the intelligence of its operator. Nothing. They call it a smartphones, and there's a lot of dummies walking around carrying them. And I don't mean to be offensive to anybody that might fit that bill, but that's what's going on. He introduced me to something called BBS bulletin board systems back in the 80s and 90s. It was very common. They were like the earlier forms of Napster, so you could go on there and you could research and you could find stuff that most people had no clue about. So I used to be able to search and find programs. I would find pictures. I would find videos. I would find music. I would find websites that were alternative to the mainstream. And I thought it was great. I thought it was like, the invention of sliced bread as a youth. And then, through my later years. But the censorship that's going on right now, the control, the manipulation, all these things that are in play are horrible, guys. Extremely horrible. It wasn't available. Like, this stuff should be mainstream. Like, when we talk about love and truth, we should talk about the similarities. We should talk about principles. We shouldn't be talking about personalities. We shouldn't be talking about agendas. And, we shouldn't be forcing our agendas upon others. And that's what's been going on. The secret societies, the different organizations out there, they're all compartmentalized. And this was a concept that the CIA came up with early on in the very beginning of the Cold War, and World War I and World War II, like in that area. You had these organizations that were building things, everything from microchips to wires to spark plugs, and nobody had any idea what the other part of the process was and what it was going to build and put together at the end of the day. And there was people that were involved with building atomic weapons that had no idea that what they were doing was contributing to atomic warfare. They had no idea. So, like I say that because that's still going on. It's going on in such a way, underground, above ground, up in space, interplanetarily. It's going on in such a way that nobody knows what the other's doing. And that's, it's unfortunate. Like, we need to come together. We need to, have full disclosure. We need to have full discussion. And we're not looking for government mind control. We're looking for a consensus where we come together and as a society, we decide where we go next. Like that's what I'm pushing for. That's what I'm promoting. That's what I'm talking about when I say 51% of the collective consciousness. I'm talking about us coming together and moving forward as a species to the next level. I want to talk about source for a minute because some people ask some questions and I feel like I kind of owe you guys an answer. So, it's like whispers into the darkness in the current status of true source. We're talking about the spiritual world, and it's very real and it's very active. Whether it's a version of frequency or interdimensional planes, they exist. They're real. We need to acknowledge them. We need to accept this fact There's science. If you look at Princeton University, PEAR, their pair studies. You look at UV DOPS, University of Virginia Department of Paranormal Studies. You want to look at these things. These are actual scientific experiences that prove things that we really need to grasp as a society, as a Western society especially. We are so lost. Eastern, they're a little bit more connected and a little bit more, but they don't have the influence and the power that Western society has had with the control of the dollar. Like our dollar only has value, people, because we have a gun behind it. We literally are holding a gun to the head of any government that says our dollar doesn't have value, and we will pull that trigger. We've done it. So, it's great to be an American, but do you really know what being an American means on a worldwide level? Do you know what it means to be an American on a universal level? Like, we talked about this a little bit before, the document, that Declaration of Independence, the Constitution. Look, I personally don't need a piece of paper to tell me that I'm a free sovereign being of true light. I don't need that shit. And for us to sit around and disparage one another and divide from one another and disintegrate a document that essentially means nothing is like pointless to me. I won't waste not 1 second of this broadcast debating on the rights that we're inherently given. We only wrote them down that day, as far as I can think. We only wrote them down that day, to make the declaration to the others that didn't know about them. But we didn't need them, and you can't erode them. I mean, we don't need them written down. You can't erode my right to defend myself. You can't erode that. You can't take that away from me. You can't rip that up. You can't black mark it. You can't, vote against it. I don't care who you are. You cannot take away my right for freedom of speech. You can't take away my right of choice of what I put in my body, what I do with my life, unless I'm hurting someone else. Then you should have a voice. And if I'm hurting anybody by having this broadcast, please let me know, because I will fix it. I'm not here to hurt anyone. I'm not here to get you to join a cult. I'm not here to get you to follow me. I don't care if you follow me. I don't give a rat's ass. Let me tell you, just so you know, I do not care if you watch this. I do not care if you follow me. I don't care if you like me. I don't care if you subscribe. I don't care about any of that shit. The only thing I care about is the state of humanity, bringing that truth to you and letting you know that there is a way for us to straighten it out. 51%. That's all we need, guys. Get on board with it. Love, truth, freedom. And that moment of silence that we missed at 12 noon for all the sick and suffering, inside and outside, in this dimension and the others. Thanks for joining me, guys. Come back and see you soon.